खुशी कभी गम में, जैसे you have that typically ceremonial scene. It was typically like that. So my daughter and I said bye to each other. And then I turned around and she turned the other way. And I'm walking out with tears in my eyes. And she's walking this way with tears in her eyes. I turned around. I didn't see her. She turned around. She didn't see me. Do you think this can be a super challenging scene to deal with in your life? Yes, no?
Yeah.
It is, right? And we both were crying. But we both didn't want to show each other because we both very strong, stubborn women who didn't want to show each other that we were going to miss each other. She was all of 12, so she looked like khatta khatta Punjabi girl who's tall. But it did matter to me and it did matter to her. And that moving away walked me up and walked her up. When I say walked, created an adaptation which is called a disease. She started losing hair like this. A lot of work was done, a lot of doctors that I took her to. Did it really help? What do you think? Can I sort out the conflict of she not being with me? I'd never left her for even a day before that. I mean, I would be mollycoddling her, holding her, pulling her hair. She had long, nice hair, lush hair. And suddenly she calls me up and says, Mom, you will not believe I'm losing this much of hair every day. And believe me, I took her to every doctor possible on the earth to say, get her hair back. She's a pretty girl. You can't do this to her. And nothing. And then I make her sit in my workshop. When I make her sit in my workshop, this is what came out. So her dadi, so I'm talking about family patterns here. Her dadi had lost both her parents in Kanishka airplane crash. Everybody remembers?
Yeah.
The flight that was coming back from Canada.
Air India.
Yes, the Air India one.
I was supposed to be on that.
Are you serious?
I was 7 years old, but they put me on an earlier flight. So I was flying alone.
See, it's giving me goosebumps. I talk with Intuit, so it's like giving me goosebumps. So both of them were in that flight. My mother-in-law's parents, and the flight. Obviously, you know what happened. It was a disaster management. They didn't find both of them. 6 months after that, she lost her husband who was in army by just an accident. So they didn't get to look into each other's eyes and say bye. So we meet again. So when I moved this way and my daughter was moving this way, we hadn't looked into each other's eyes and said, bye Divya, I love you, bye. We hadn't done that. And that's all we had to do. That's all we had to do. The therapy involved. Every time I met her, I had to look into her eyes and said, Divya, we'll meet back again. This is not a goodbye. This is a coming back. You're going to go and study. I'm going to go and study. And we're going to meet back again, okay, darling? And she understood that. The body understood that. It wasn't a partition. It wasn't a separation. And let's go a little further. This was coming from partition that happened from Pakistan, India. 1947 marked a partition between India and Pakistan. And very interestingly, at that point, my husband's parents, my husband's grandparents, and my mother-in-law's also, my mother-in-law's parents, everybody, and from my mother-in-law's husband's side, both of them were coming from Pakistan. And would it have been a nice place, or would it have been, and they would have been in a bad place? Imagine running away from Pakistan to India. The stories that you know aren't really good. There are horrible stories where people shudder to kind of even look back and say what happened at that time. And those are the kind of stories that we're looking at when people part with each other. A baby was born on the platform and the mother died, the baby died, they couldn't save, which means they couldn't look at each other and say goodbye. So I'm talking about number of separations that had happened where people had no control over it. It just happened because circumstances was so bad that things were happening not just to this family but to everyone. But I would really want you guys to think over here, just 2 minutes. Could there be certain family patterns happening in your families which could then be mistaken for DNA and genetics? Anyone? is anything happening in your families which could be ruled down and said, that is looking like genetically being carried out, but really, is it? Could there be some other explanation for the whole story? And that's what we are looking at here. So this is basically Meta Health, which tells me what are the family patterns which will help us identify what are the patterns in the whole system.